Hello everyone, we are going to learn how to use Blender. This will be a super simple tutorial. Anyone can figure out how to do with Blender with just this couple tips. All I do to start off, new file, click this general button. We're going to hit A on our keyboard, and we're going to hit the delete key. Fresh start, it's fresh, it's clean. We're going to navigate up here, this little button here. This is called our viewport overlays. We are going to click this button here called statistics. This over here will display our triangle count, our object count, and our polygon count, which is helpful for figuring out and optimizing your models. Okay, so what I always like doing when I load something new is I come up here to the modeling tab. It's basically the same thing as the layout tab, but your window here is a little bigger because you don't have the timeline down here. So that's what I like doing. Sometimes I pull this down too. So I like coming up here to the viewport shading and choosing a different matte cap. So we click on this button here and we have different shaders. Sometimes it looks a little different, so I'll explain how this works in a minute, but I have like this cube that's shaded kind of weird, but if I go to matte cap and change it to like this or something, I like this, but it's personal preference. You can mess around with this. And in addition, if you want to shade it different, you could click random. So like if you have like different objects, it shades them a different color. You can see it a little better. So yeah, those are your three main things that I always set up with, and enable statistics in this one too. So let's start with all of the different features. So if you want to ever add something into something, make sure that this says object mode. Very easy to figure that out with because it says it up here, but I'll show you a little shortcut in a second. You can hit Shift and A on your keyboard. You have this little add menu. A couple different meshes. You have a plane that looks like this. You also have a cube. Looks like that. And a circle. You also have a UV sphere. So looks like that. You also have a different type of sphere called an icosphere. You could use this one as well. It's all personal preference. You have a cylinder, self-explanatory. Cone, self-explanatory. And a torus. So that's what that looks like. I think it might be one more. A grid and a monkey. I don't really ever use these ones. I don't have to worry about it. You also have curves, so you could use a path, a nerves curve, nerves circle, Bezier, and a circle. I can explain how a path works actually. We'll start off with that. You come up here and use your viewport. So if you have a number pad, you can just click Control and then the number pad 1 key, but I don't have it, so I have to come up here. And for movement, if you can tell already, your middle mouse button moves you around like this. And if you want to zoom in, use the scroll wheel and then hold down Shift and press in on your middle mouse to move around. If you want to recenter yourself, all you gotta do is hit Shift and C, and it centers you on the center geometry. But another tool you could do is clicking on your object, and then if you hit the tilde key on your keyboard and click View Selected, it views it. So you can, that's the equivalent of hitting F in Studio. Might be helpful. I don't know. It's up to you. So if you want to delete something, just click on it and hit the delete key. If you want to delete everything at once, hit A and delete it too. Pretty simple. I don't think that's terribly difficult, but let's talk about paths real quick. We'll click path and we'll go to Y view. If you want to move something around, you could hit G. So clicking G once and then moving it around with your mouse moves it around. And then if you want to recenter it, you can just right click on it, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. No, sorry. Set origin, origin geometry. and then do Shift and then S to selection a cursor, and that'll settle around this little cursor here, which, by the way, you can move by clicking Shift and then right click. So this is always where you have geometry that spawns into. So if I were to like spawn in a cube or something, it'll spawn up here. And a good way of aligning things is you could click this. Let's say you want to align this path with this cube. You could just selection a cursor that, just like that. Or if you want to move this over here and align this cube here, Shift S, cursor to selective, and then Shift S, selection to cursor. Pretty simple. Let's reset it. All right. Now I'll talk about curves. So curve, pretty simple. Kind of what you can do, you can make a little different shape with it. Want to extrude it, hit E. Use your extrude key, very simple. Then do a little different shapes. Come over here to this little tab here called data, geometry, round. You can make it a little bigger, smaller. Sometimes it gets a little bigger. You can have a little bit of weird fading here. That's where I kind of change it a little bit. And then that kind of goes away. So there's a little shape. If you don't like these caps, click this button right here. This is a resolution. This basically just shows you how many faces you have. So if I make this bigger, you now have more faces, smaller, less faces. Pretty simple. Makes sense to me. And then when you want to edit the shape, all you got to do, right click, convert to mesh, tab into edit mode. And now I have all these little fun things. Looks very complicated. Very simple. 3 different modes. Vertex mode, which you can do with this. Or you could click 2 and now you're in edge mode, so you can move the edge. Or hit 3 to go into face mode and move the face. Now let's say you wanted to move this vertex up here, but you don't want to have to do this. Very simple. Hit O on your keyboard. This is the proportional editing. So now when I move this, remove proportionally, scrolling with your mouse wheel shows you how that works, or like how strong it is. And as you can see, it moves proportionally. But let's say I want to align this vertex with this one up here. Super simple. Shift and tab. And we'll turn on proportional editing for now. Actually, yeah, we'll keep it on. So Shift tab is called the snap. You have a couple different options. Vertex, edge, face, volume, edge center, and edge perpendicular. Now I want to snap this with the vertex, so I can click vertex mode, G, and snap it just like that. And now I have this interesting shape. So might be cool. I don't know. Maybe you'll find some use in it. I go and delete it though. So I'm gonna spawn in a cube. Talk about face edge extruding. So E extrudes face. You can scale it weirdly, or you can hit Control R to add a loop cut. And you could scale this down and make an interesting shape. I don't know. However, if you want to make more loop cuts, Control R and use your middle mouse wheel. Cool. But let's say you wanted to, hold on, I'm just gonna turn this stuff off. You want to, I don't know, make it curve. Not to worry. I scale this one in a little bit, and I'm now gonna hit G, and I'm gonna hit G again. This is edge slide mode. So you can kind of slide the edge. We'll put this right here. Control B. Weird. This is a really weird shape. It goes outside. Not to worry. We'll come down here and we'll hit this button, clamp overlap. And now it's taken care of. There's also a shape which you can use to change how you want this to look like. Or you want it to be a curve, 0.5. Customize. Let's say I want them to look like steps. Put that preset. Want support loops, looks like that. Cornice molding, looks like that. Crown molding. I don't know. Maybe if there's more segments, it might look better. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of messing around right now. And then, yeah, there's your bevel. So let's say you want to rotate this entire thing. Not to worry. You can hit R. Or rotating this around the y-axis. But if you're not on a orthographic view, as that's called, you rotate, it'll rotate weird. Not to worry. What you can do is hit R, and then the axis you want to rotate, if I want to rotate around the y-axis, I can hit Y, and all of a sudden, you can rotate on that one axis. R, and you can hit RZ. Perfect. And I might scale this a little bit, make it a little smaller. Perfect. It's a great shape. I love this. However, it's a little small issue. If I extrude this a little bit and bevel it, it bevels kind of weird. And that's because in this spot here, we have our scale is a little weird. And when the scale is off, so does affect the bevels. Easy way to fix it. Control A. Apply location, rotation, scale. You want to fix the scale. You reapply the scale. Now this is 1. We'll bevel this again. And now it bevels properly. Pretty cool. You could also apply the rotation too if you wanted to. I don't know why you would want to. So yeah, your origin is that little orange thing here. So that's what this is. If you want to change where that origin point is. So let's say I want it to be around this group of faces. What I can do is hit Alt and then click on this edge. And now I've connected or selected all these faces. I can right click. Maybe not. Actually, no, what I have to do is I have to hit Shift S and cursor to selected. And then right click, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now when I rotate, it rotates around that point. Perfect. So you can do the same thing with edge loops. 2, hold down Alt. Now you have that edge loop, or this one for some reason. So you also have another key called I. You can do that to inset the face. I don't know, maybe you want to do something like this. And then bevel the edges. Now you have this really interesting shape. Let's add some edge loops for an example about something. So what I just did here is I Control R twice, and then doing this is called J. So I can click this vertex and then this vertex and hit J. So I'll go back into face mode, click these 3 faces and hit inset. Notice how they inset together. Let's say you don't want that to happen, or it's the other way. You can click I again and it insets them individually. Hitting I again fixes it. So that's what it looks like if you click hitting I. Something cool. So yeah. Let's say you wanted to build with a curve. You can add this circle here. And to select all geometry, you can hit A. So we're in edge mode. We can do Shift and D to duplicate it. And I can move it up here. I don't know. Y. We'll rotate it like this. So we want to have a curve between here and here. No problem. We'll hold down Alt on this one, and then we'll hold down Alt on this one. And we'll do bridge edge loops. It's a weird factor. It's okay. Number of cuts. Slowly increase it. Kind of fixes itself. Twist can do really funny things. I don't know why I would want it to look like this, but I guess you could make it look like that. Or if you want to make it less smooth, you could fix that too, I guess, if you want to change what that looks like. Let's say you want to go to these faces. Super simple. Right click, shade auto smooth, and you can play with this number to see how it looks like. Some versions of Blend is called shade smooth by angle. It's kind of the same thing. It's very smooth. Caps, edge loop. on the edge loop and hit F to fill the face. Same thing on F fills the face. So you want to make a pipe. I like to make it a pipe is hitting a plane, and then we want to merge all these verts to the center. You can do that by hitting A in our vertex mode or clicking 1, and then merge at center. So now we have one single vertex. So let's say I want my pipe to look like this. I don't know why. And then have it come down here. Nice shape. So we want to have all these corners, select them. What you could also do is click on this first corner and then hold down Control and click on this one. And then Control Shift B instead of Control B. And we'll bevel the edges. Segments, you could change your shape. You can clamp the overlap if you want to. So we'll fix this. So you have two modes for bevel, edge, and vertex. We need vertex mode because that's what this is. And what we can do now is we'll convert this to a curve. Go back down to this data tab, click this around, and then now we have our curve. A little bigger, resolution a little bit. There's our curve. We'll fill the gaps. Convert this back to a mesh and then pipe. Want to fix this little Engon stuff? What you can do is click on this triangle, then click on this one and hit F, and it makes it an Engon, I think, right? Yeah. So that fixes that. But as you can see, it's not exactly straight. Simple way to fix that is by clicking size and then Z and then clicking 0. But as you notice, it doesn't connect. So simple way to fix that, we'll hit A, M, merge by distance. And then now it's fixed. It's pretty simple. I'll go a little bit. I don't know. Let's say you wanted to make this have like a little end part to it. We could do is something like this. And then I just use 2 loop cuts, Control R. If you want to cancel loop cut, you can right click on it. You can hold Alt on these faces and then Alt E, extrude individual faces. Do something like that. Or you could do extrude E, extrude faces along normals to keep them connected. Occasionally it goes weird, so I always suggest clicking this button, offset even. This is a preciser number if you want to change it. So it's helpful. We'll shade it smooth. Yeah. So that's just an idea. So let's say I wanted this to be reflected over the z-axis. You can come in here to the modifiers panel and click open modifier, and we can type in mirror. And now we have 2 of these, and it looks a little funny. But you can change how you want it to look like. So we now have this interesting shape that I guess could work if you want it to work. It's kind of cool, actually, not gonna lie. But let's say you wanted this to be mirrored somewhere else. What you could do is come up here and use a little trick to motion the 3D cursor, and you can change where you mirror it. Or if you want to mirror it around a specific part, like let's say you have a cube here, you want it to mirror around. All you have to do is click this button here and click on the cube. Now you can mirror it. So just like that. And then bisect, only have it show up on one axis, the X. So we now have that cool shape, which is kind of cool actually. Flip it. So now it looks like that. Or if you want to enable all of them for some reason, I don't know. Now nothing shows up. It's a cool modifier. Want to apply it? Hit this button. However, if you want it to be disabled for a little bit, you can just click this button. It disables it. Or if you want to have all the geometry be visible, you can click on this button. So you can see it a little easier. What you could also do is use a screw modifier. So, and I just made this interesting shape. So I think, yeah, I don't know. It's a cool modifier. It might be useful for something. I don't know. I don't really use this very much. This is kind of cool, actually. You could also use an array modifier, which you could do to make this a little bigger. You could change how much you want it to move. Or if you want to change the axis, you could do it on the Y and then increase it. So want to have something like this for some reason, like a bike frame, you could do something like that, or a radiator. Or let's say I have a curve. So if I make a curve, like use this path, for example, we'll scale it 10 times. So I just hit the scale key, which is called S, and then 10. Let's make it this curve for some reason. I don't know. So always make sure you apply the scale. And I always suggest doing set origin to geometry for the best results. And what we can do now is come back to this modifier and type in curve. We'll click on our curve. And it does some funny things, but not to worry, we can change the deform axis. And sometimes it changes, other times it doesn't. It's kind of finicky on how this works. So what you could do, so when this happens, it happens a lot. What you could do is do something like this, kind of line it up on the curve, and then occasionally that might help, which it's not, so it's kind of embarrassing. A better example for this actually would be if you have like a circle. Well, let's see real quick. Let me make a circle scale, and then you have like a bolt or something you want to make. So you can use this little panel here to change the properties. Let's say I want this to be like an 8-sided bolt. Perfect. And then we'll scale it down on the z-axis. So you can do that by hitting S and then Z to scale it down, or if you want to scale it on the X, you can do X, I don't know. But let's say you wanted to scale in every direction, but except the Z, you could do S and then Shift and Z, and it scales only on the X and Y, not the Z. So there's our bolt. We'll do some cool stuff. We'll make an edge loop here. We'll take these faces in this one and delete them. And you could inset this, and I'll make a bolt looks like this. There's our bolt. And because we want the bolt to be mirrored, we could mirror over the z-axis, and now we have our bolt. So let's say we wanted to make this bigger. So what we could do is hit Alt and then Z, and this brings up what's called X-ray mode. Come into this orthographic view and click on 3, and then drag, and then grab, and then on the Z-axis, and our bolt is bigger. Let's make it a little smaller, but only on X and Y. So there's our bolt. Well, curve. I'll make sure this is a curve. We'll just do that by connect to a curve. Perfect. Now it's on our curve. Got an array too. We'll put this one up here so it aligns with the curve, and make this like 2. Well, let's increase the count. And all of a sudden, we have some bolts around a curve. Pretty cool. You can also click H to hide the curve, so you can just see the bolts now. let's say you wanted to like make them like a different color or use some shading, you could come down here to material preview and come down here, new material, base color. I don't know, let's make them green. Let's make some green bolts. But let's say we wanted just this part up here to be like gray. Click this button, new material. We'll make that a gray. Click assign, and just like that. Perfect. Yeah. Lime green and gray bolts. It's awesome. But I also want this to be a different collection or a different folder. Click this one button, and I can click the N key in our object mode. Make sure in object mode, just by clicking tab, you can change between the two. Collection 2, and it changes it just like that. So this whole setup here is 1,296 triangles, 600 faces, 248 edges, 672 vertices. And because only one object is visible, you only have one object. So, I don't know, this bolt's feeling kind of lonely. Let's bevel it a little bit. That's weird. It beveled weird. Huh, I wonder why. Control Z, do Control A, apply that scale. We'll try beveling again. Ah, now it looks proper. So that's bolt. Lovely. Looks great. Love this bolt. But I want this to be like that, but it looks weird. Not sorry, we can use extrude manifolds. And now it extrudes properly. Cool. We have our really weird bolt that does really weird things, but it's okay. It works. Let's see, what else? So you can also change the pivot point. So if like you want to pivot it around your individual origins. So let's say you have multiple ones of these. So we have that one, and you have this one down here. You can click A. And then if you want individual origins, you can scale them individually. Because if you did it by median point, which is what it is defaultly set to, it scales like that. Not exactly what you want. Let's say you wanted this to scale like here, you could change your cursor to be there, and then 3D cursor, and now it scales from that point there. You have this interesting shape. And then let's say we're done, we're ready to export, apply mesh. So this is all set and ready. All we're gonna do now is hit file and then export. And for Roblox, I like using FBX files. So I like doing is naming it something like, I don't know, cool bolts. And so I always suggest doing visible objects. So if you want to export the entire scene that's visible, you can do that. Or if you want to just do objects you have selected, like if I just want to do this bolt that I have selected and I have like other bolts in the workspace, but I just want this one, you could do selected objects. Or if you want to export an entire collection, you can have that option too. The scale is useful for scaling things to Studio. So the way I like to think about it is 1 meter, which is the default movement. So if I were to like extrude this out, I extrude 1. I don't know why that didn't work. E1 there. So that's moving it out 1 meter. So if we want this to be 1 meter and this to be 1 stud in Roblox Studio, all we have to do is when we export, we change this to 0.01, and then it'll export normally. We hit export FBX. Works. Export FBX. Let's see. You could also up here change your scene, which you could do in the regular mode. And you could also take an edge loop. from a cylinder. So I want this to be a 16 vert cylinder, and I want to inset this face and extrude it. And I want this edge loop here, which I did with Control R, to be a circle. Export that, or you can hold Alt to select it, hit E to separate it by, so now you have two objects. You have your curve, you have your cylinder, and you can do the same with the curve thing we did there. Make sure the scale is 1, convert to a curve, and then use a curve modifier. You could, in theory, if you really wanted to, come back in here and dissolve edges, which removes some triangles. I like doing. And occasionally, from time to time, merge by distance. Just usually something that's good, something that I would recommend doing. Just you can lower your triangle count. Make sure you don't have like random faces on the inside. But occasionally, sometimes things get weird, and a good way to check that is coming into the viewport overlays and clicking face orientation. So if you see blue, if you see all blue, you're good. That means that they're correctly oriented. But sometimes they'll show up red. And that means this face is inverted and is not the same as the rest. It's simple. If it's just that face, you can hit Alt and then N on your keyboard and click flip. But let's say for some reason you have like this face here, this face. Actually, come up here, select. I hit A here. Come up here, select checker, select random. Actually, hold on. Select random and then Alt and flip. So we have all these random faces that are red. It's pretty simple. You can just hit A and then Alt N and then recalculate outside. And that should fix the issue. And if it doesn't, you'd have to come in here manually and flip the face. So let's say I wanted to make this select this weird. You could do check or deselect, and it selects every other face. And I now have this funny shape. So edit mode. Make sure you're in edit mode when you do this. There's also a lot of different ways to select things. You could also do that with Shift G. You could select similar by like, I don't know, area, and it selects these ones too. So, because they're all the same size, you kind of have to look up what those mean. And I'm thinking right now of what else would be useful for hotkeys. Tab is your edit mode. If for some reason stuff gets weird and you click on this, for example, or what you don't want to do, you can just click on this. But if you hit W by accident, it kind of changes your selection. So you have different options. Like this is a circle select. You have a lasso. So if you want to select these ones, you could select it like that. Or if you want to do it like this, you can drag it in this mode. Or the method that I like using, which is the selector. But if you notice, it only selects these specific faces because that's what the camera can see. If you want to select both, just hit Alt Z and then you can click all them again. And now you have all the faces selected. Hope this helps. Hope this was a good guide that helped you learn how Blender works. If any questions, drop them in the comments. I might remix them as shorts and then upload them as shorts to help you all figure out how this works, or if you have a specific question for modeling. I don't know. Could technically do this if you wanted to in Bevel. I don't know why I would want to do that. I don't know. I'm kind of messing around now. I don't have nothing else I want to do. So yeah, there's a lot of things you could really do. There is one more actually, now that I think about it. It's called bridge faces. So if I inset this face a little bit, and then I click this face, there's a, we'll bring this down. Then we'll click this, and then we'll click this one. If I hit bridge faces, it creates a little bridge. So it creates a little hole. And I see inside, and now I have this like gear almost bolt. And you can also use a subdivision surface modifier to make it smooth. It heavily buffs the triangles. You can do this. Right now it's a lot of triangles. Or, yeah, I don't know. One other thing you could technically do with Blender is Boolean geometry. So let's say you have a cube here and you want it to cut a hole like this, GY, and you want it to cut a hole. So you could click on this one and then click Boolean. And if it's on difference, you can click on this button and now there's a little hole. So I just hid the object. So I'll hide it again. So let's say I want to union it together. I want to make it look like this. This is one object. And do that. Or intersect for just a point where it touches each other. You have that shape now. Could be useful, could be not. It's up to you. And there's also the skin modifier. So essentially what that does is it touches just the edges of the mesh. So it makes some cool geometry like this. You could do Shift E1 to change the hardness of an object. So essentially that does when you use a subdivision on this object, which you could also do by doing Control-1 as setting a subdivision surface. It doesn't subdivide this. So that's helpful for keeping an edge sharp. So you could do Shift E and -1, and that's what happens to it if you don't do that. So if I just want this edge to be sharp, you can do that, Shift E1. So might be helpful, could be not, I don't know. And yeah, that's kind of everything that I could think about for what would be helpful. So if you want like a different tutorial or a question about how to do something, just like I said, send it in the comments and I'll make a video about it. So I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.